Our speaker today, Larry Anderson, has been forging a pathway for us to follow in the way he has pursued friendships with those who are different from him, those that make him feel awkward. And I now invite Wendell Birkeland to the stage to introduce Larry Anderson.
It's my privilege today to introduce a friend of mine. When I've done this before, I've thought sometimes that I would describe how different we were. For me, he was always a little intimidating. It's always a little difficult for me to relate to. He's a lot bigger than I am. He's reminded me of that often. But what I've realized over time is that the same blood in my veins runs in his veins. He's a gift to me. He's exposed to me what our segregated society looks like. I didn't realize, I guess, that I'd been living my whole life in kind of a white cocoon. I would be with white people. We'd gather at a luncheon like this with white people. We'd invite people who were white, and they'd sit next to us, and we'd think we were doing a good thing. And I never even thought about who wasn't there, who never got invited. That indifference is a piece of me that has died over a period of time as I've known him. That's why he's a gift. He shows me what it means to ignore the other half of the world. Larry has changed my life in the 25 years I've known him. And if any of you have relationships with other people who love God and are different than you, it'll change your life. Because you'll begin to see the world differently. You'll see it through his eyes or her eyes. And that changes our perspective and how we feel. And that's my hope. That's my hope in a gathering like this. I'd like Larry to come up now. He reminds me all the time that he's bigger than I am. I used to think I was tall, but that's just because I hung out with short people. And one thing I know, he is my friend. And it's made my life different.
Thank you, Wendell. Hold up just a minute. I remember when I first met Wendell. As you can see from our appearances, we don't have much in common. Wendell was a former prosecutor who became a defense attorney, which in my profession, that was like sacrilege. Like you don't do that. You don't go to the dark side. Now we all know that if we ever need a lawyer, we want a good lawyer, but in my profession, Wendell represented the other side that didn't understand what the problem was. We met over a trailblazer who got in trouble hitting a police officer, a person in my profession. For me, that struck two chords. Number one, I was a frustrated basketball player that fell short of the NBA, so I was always jealous of those guys. Not that I've gotten over that now, as you can tell. And the other fact is that Wendell was on the defending this person. And my chief at the time decided that this guy's doing his community service, it would be a good idea if I would be in charge of that. So he volunteered me. So I had to go to Wendell's office, the most humiliating thing I ever did. Wendell had this office downtown up on this, overlooking the thing. Wendell was sitting behind a big old desk, a big nice chair, dictating to me how the terms of this relationship was going to happen. I thought, how dare this dude talk to me? I ain't no rookie. So I'm sitting there like steaming. Make a long story short, Wendell at that time represented everything that I learned to despise about people like him in that position. And I vowed that day right there that I would have nothing to do with this man. Now the poor blazer, he thought this was about him. Wasn't nobody even thinking about him. This was between me and Wendell. between me and this dude right here who represented to me everything that had destroyed my community. Everything that was negative about where I lived and who I was represented right there in that office at that time by this cat right here. And I spent my whole life becoming a foe. Do you know what becoming a foe means? When you don't have the credentials, when you don't have the graduation with honors, when you don't have the celebrity status, people have a tendency to disregard you. Especially if you're a person of color. If you don't come as a special Negro, then the majority has a tendency to disregard anything you have to say. You have nothing of value. And I grew up in the shadow of that, so I decided to become a foe that couldn't be dismissed. You feeling me? I decided to become somebody that you can't dismiss. And I took a position of opposition, and I perfected my craft. I used my size, my position, my competitive nature, and the fact that most people just saw me as a loudmouth, ignorant N-word, and they underestimated me. And I used that to my advantage. And this is what Wendell didn't know, was sitting in his office, fuming. Little did I know that God had other plans. Oh, you laugh, but look around. God had other plans. Wendell, to this day, I can honestly say, happens to be one of my best friends. And I'm not saying that because I have financial gain or somehow he can deliver the goods for me. That being said, I actually like Wendell. I know, it gets me too. I'm like, the guy can't even hoop. Wendell, I'm so thankful that you stuck in there with me and became my friend, dude. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.